Hello and welcome back to the Lit Cave. This is Brian, and this is the first weekly wrap-up. This is replacing my monthly wrap-ups where I talk about everything I've read for the entire month, and instead I'm going to break it down week by week and talk about what I've read each week. Some weeks you may only see one or two books on the list. Some weeks there may be, 5 or 6. We'll see. This week I actually did pretty well, but quite a few of these were graphic novels. So let's get started. What have I read basically since February started? Well, here we go. The first book that I finished reading in February was a graphic novel, and I actually read it issue by issue through the app Comixology, and that is Miss Marvel by G. Willow Wilson. And everybody's been kind of going crazy for this Miss Marvel comic, and I think it's great. It's really, really good. There's some aspects of it that remind me a lot of Robert Kirkman's Invincible, but in the aspect that you've got this sort of young, unsuspecting character who would love superpowers and then ends up having them and kind of reacts to that. But what makes Miss Marvel kind of stand apart and what has made so many people love it the way that they do is that, one, we have a female protagonist, and two is that our female protagonist is Muslim. So that's a big deal. Incidentally, I am not feeling very well. So you'll have to excuse me if I look terrible or sound terrible. Or have to, wipe my nose in the middle of this video. I'm not even going to edit it out. Just going to leave it. So I finished Miss Marvel. It's volume 1. It's called No Normal, and it was really, really entertaining. I have to say, it was super hyped, and I think it deserves a lot of the hype, but I think maybe it might have been just a little bit overhyped. I can't say that it's bad at all. In fact, I gave it 5 stars, but I think maybe just because everybody's talking about it right now, it didn't blow me away, but I really did enjoy it. So I love that the character's kind of coming to grips with who she is, both in her culture at home and her culture in her school, and who she wants to be and how to walk the line between loving and respecting the people around her and still being her own person. And so that is really great about it. The next thing that I finished reading, I was already reading at the end of January, and it took me a little longer than I would have liked to have finished reading it because we had a lot of testing this last week. But I finished reading Beautiful Darkness by Kami Garcia and Margaret Stohl, which is book 2 in the Castor Chronicles. And I gotta warn you, there's gonna be some spoilers here for a minute. So as long as this book is up on the screen, if you don't want to hear the spoilers, then just kind of fast forward till you don't see this book up on the screen anymore. But Beautiful Darkness is the sequel to Beautiful Creatures, and this book deals a lot with the repercussions of what happens at the end of Beautiful Darkness. So we've got Lena, who did some things that are not encouraged in the Castor world in order to keep her boyfriend alive. And now she feels like she's a different person. And she's changing. She has not officially been claimed for dark or for light, and so she's trying to figure out, again, just kind of like with, this is at the end of Amazing Spider-Man 1, there's this scene where they go into the English classroom and the English teacher says, I've heard that there's a dozen different, storylines, but I'm here to tell you there's only one storyline in every book, and that is, who am I? And I'd say that's pretty true. And that's the story here in Beautiful Darkness. It's Lena trying to figure out who she is, and her boyfriend trying to save her. But one of the things I do like about the Castor Chronicles series is that, to a large degree, the guy can never really save them. Lena has to save herself, and he's there and he helps, but she's got to do it on her own, and I like that. Then I read a short story called Dream Dark that really follows our protagonist's best friend Link as he is going through some significant changes. And I don't want to throw out too many spoilers here, but Link is a very different person at the end of Beautiful Darkness, and so he's got to kind of figure out who he is. And Dream Dark is a little bit about that. It was a short story. It was good. I think I gave it 3 stars. I think it could earn more stars than that, but that really depends on how that characterization benefits Beautiful Chaos. So we'll have to see on that. Then the next book that I read, I've been reading a chapter a day in the morning to kind of get my focus on God. So I finished reading Addicted to Busy by Brady Boyd. And I talked about this book a little bit in my To Be Read video. But it was really, really good. You know, it was about just kind of getting your priorities straight, figuring out what's important, stepping away from the things that aren't, focusing on the things that are, and allowing yourself time to rest. And I think that that's really good. And I'm one of those people that's always prided myself on my work ethic. And that's a wonderful thing to have. But if at the end of all this good work ethic, my marriage or my family has suffered, or my spiritual walk has suffered, or my self-identity has suffered, then it wasn't worth it. So I've got to kind of balance all those things out. And I think this book was a good look at that. So I gave Addicted to Busy 5 stars. And then I read a duology, and they're actually companion novels. I thought that they were like literally a duology, like one came after the other, but they were companion novels. And that's Boxers and Saint by Gene Luen Yang. So the first one I read was Boxers, and Boxers is significantly longer than Saints, and Boxers is from the perspective of the Boxers in the Boxer Rebellion. These, these native Chinese people who believed that the Christian Europeans were coming in to destroy their culture and destroy their faith, and so they stood up to them. And it was really, really good. And what I thought was so interesting is that you're rooting for the Boxers, but at the end, you're really questioning all the choices that the Boxers made. And you're thinking, are you really doing this with the best at heart, or are you just doing what feels good, what feels right to you in the moment? And then you read the companion novel, which is Saints. And Saints follows from a Christian perspective. And same thing. Although with Saints, I feel like you have a less reliable narrator throughout. Like you are never 100% behind them like you are in Boxers at the beginning. At the end of Saints, you're just kind of like, you just kind of feel like at the end of both of them, like, this is significant that you do not fully support the Boxers. You do not fully support the Saints. You see where they both have taken good steps, where they weren't listening to each other, and you see where they both have really veered off the course, and it's become just about revenge or violence or winning instead of helping. And so they were really well written. I gave Boxers 4 stars and Saints 3 stars, but I really think that Saints was more like 3.5 stars. They were really well written, and I'm interested to see because DC Comics just announced that Gene Luen Yang is coming on board as a writer for DC Comics, and he's going to start by writing Superman. And that'll be such a different, thing for him to write. He's written, American Born Chinese, Boxers and Saints, and he's written some of Airbender, The Last Airbender. But this is really, completely different subculture and background. So I'm just interested to see what he brings to Superman as well. So basically, I've read 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 things this week, which is a ton and way more than I thought I would. I do not anticipate that next week's wrap-up will be this long. I will tell you that I am, once again, reading 3 books. I'm still reading A Tale of Two Cities. I've got book 3 left in A Tale of Two Cities to read, and I have 2 weeks in which to finish that to be caught up with my students. I am reading Beautiful Chaos, which is the sequel to Beautiful Darkness. And so it's the 3rd book in the series, and I just watched someone do their wrap-up and talk pretty negatively about it, so I hope that I'm not disappointed in it. And then the next thing I'm reading is what I'm most excited about that I'm reading right now, and it's called Scary Close by Donald Miller. And Donald Miller is pretty much my favorite author, and so I cannot wait to read this. And the subtitle is Dropping the Act and Acquiring a Taste for True Intimacy. And Donald Miller writes so openly, so I can't wait to read that. So anyway, I will see you in our next wrap-up, which will be next week, and I would anticipate being at least done with Beautiful Chaos, and we'll see what else I finish in that time. Until then, see you same lit time, same lit channel.